Auzu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I hope you all are doing good. Today we are going to do the para number 18 of the Quran. Let's to see what we are going to learn here. Kad aflaha. This is very important part of the Quran, para number 18, because it talks about the faith, patience, truthfulness, and rewards of the good deeds. Like what kind of the rewards we are going to get if we just do follow the righteousness. This para contains three surahs. First one is the remaining part of Surah Al-Mu'minun that continues from Surah para number 7. Then Surah An-Nur, 64 verses are in Surah Nur, and then Surah Al-Furqan that is partially covered in this para number 18. So approximately the total verses are 212 in this para. This para teaches us how to live a pure life and be responsible and stay on the right path to success in the world and the hereafter. And as from the aspects of prophet stories, last nations, rules of good society, and description of Jahannam and Jannah are given in this para. If we see with respect to five pillars in Surah Mu'minun, verse number 15, it is said, أَفَحَسِبْتُمْ أَنَّمَا خَلَقْنَاكُمْ أَبَسًا وَأَنَّكُمْ إِلَيْنَا لَا تُرْجَعُونَ. Did you think that we had created you uselessly and that to us you would not be returned? So Allah teaches here, Allah created us for a purpose and we must obey Him and believe in Him because we are going to be returned to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And which means we're going to be answerable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when we will return to Allah. Okay, next one is قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ. Surah Al-Mu'minun, verse number 1 to 2. What is mentioned here, successful indeed are the believers, those who humbly concentrate in their prayer. So prayer makes us strong and successful, just like practicing for an exam, praying every day brings us closer to Allah and makes life easier. Similarly, just to concentrate in praying, just to helps us to be closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and successful. Next one is zakat, the charity. Surah Al-Mu'minun, verse number 4. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ لِلزَّكَاةِ فَاعِلُونَ. And those who observe the practice of zakat. Helping others cleans our hearts and wealth. Imagine sharing your food with someone who is hungry. That's what zakat does for the whole society, right? So, when if it is said in the verse number 4 to practice zakat, so we should just to purify our wealth because zakat is a way of purifying our wealth. The next one about fasting, if we see verse number 52 in Surah Al-Mu'minun. If we see Surah Al-Mu'minun, verse number 52, this verse basically not directly talks about fasting, but it relates to fasting. In fasting, we are faithful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala every time. That's why we restrain ourselves from all the bad things and prohibited stuff by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the thing is, we are fearful from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why we don't even eat, even we feel hungry when there is no one looking at us. But we know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching and have eyes on everything we do the whole day anywhere. So when we are not eating, it means we are fearful from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This verse is also teaching about us to be fearful from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inna hazihi ummatukum ummatum wahidatan wa ana rabbukum fattaqun. Indeed, this is your one religion, and I am your Lord, so fear me. Next one is about this verse is going to be about not directly about Hajj and pilgrimage, but it talks a little bit about the kind of stuff that relates to it. In the verse, in the surah number, in the verse number, basically it mentions in the verse number. It is mentioned here Surah Al-Hajj, but it's from Surah An-Nur. Surah An-Nur is the 24th Surah, verse number 37 of Surah An-Nur. The verse number 27 of Surah An-Nur talks about رِجَالٌ لَا تُلْهِيهِمْ تِجَارَةٌ وَلَا بَيْعٌ عَنْ ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ. Men whom neither commerce nor sale, they distracts from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, Hajj is the journey of Allah and it helps people stay focused on their faith. But when we talk about this verse 24 37, it just also talks about neither sale nor commerce distract from remembrance of Allah. Let's do see the explanation of it a little bit. Men whom neither commerce nor sale distract from remembrance of Allah and the performance of prayer and giving zakat, they fear a day in which their hearts and eyes will fearfully turn about. This is the whole translation of the whole verse. So the phrase "they fear a day" refers to the day of judgment, and when people hearts and eyes will be in state of turmoil and fear. The righteous men described in the verse are mindful of this day and strive to prepare themselves for this, to living a virtual life. Basically, if we just to see this, the verse 24:37, which is the verse number, which is the verse of Surah Al-Nur 24/7, it talks about men whom neither commerce nor sale distracts from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It basically, this verse encourages believer to prioritize their spiritual life, avoid distractions, and cultivate a sense of fear and reverence of for Allah. But by doing so, they can prepare themselves for the day of judgment and attain a state of peace and tranquility in the life and the next, right? Okay, let's see the next part. of this para number 18. What do we learn from here? Stories of the prophets in para number 18 are mentioned if we see Surah Al-Mu'minun, verse number 29. Prophet Noah alayhi salam mentioned the ark and the flood. Prophet Noah called his people to worship Allah for 950 years. We already know it from the previous para. So what was it? Like Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Prophet Noah alayhi salam called his people to worship Allah for 950 years. They rejected him, so Allah saved him and the believers in the ark while the disbelievers drowned. So lesson we got from this story: patience and faith leads to the success, while arrogance leads to the destruction. Right? And when we talk about Prophet Musa alayhi salam facing Pharaoh, in the verse Surah Al-Mu'minun, verse number 45 to verse number 49, Surah Al-Mu'minun, Surah number 23, Prophet Musa alayhi salam was sent to the Pharaoh, but he was arrogant. Allah drowned Pharaoh and saved the believers. So never be proudy and always listen to Allah's guidance. Next one is about Prophet Isa alayhi salam and his miracles. In Surah Al-Mu'minun, verse number 50, Allah again mentioned about Prophet Isa's miracle. Isa was born miraculously and spoke as a baby. He healed the sick and gave sight to the blind by Allah's command. These are also the miracles of Prophet Isa that were given from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned here. That he healed the sick and gave sight to the blind by Allah's command. So Allah gave miracles to his chosen one to guide people. Next one is teachings and moral lessons from the para number 18, the importance of purity. If we see Surah An-Nur, verse number 30 to 31, tell the believing men and women to lower their gaze and guard their modesty. So lesson we got from here: modesty keeps society clean and pure. And when we talk about modesty, it's not only about women's, like Allah talks about, like men should also be lower down their gaze when they just look at each other, right? Like when they look at the women's, right? Tell the believing men and women to lower their gaze and guard their modesty. Next one is the power of light, Nur. Surah An-Nur, verse number 35 mention Allah is the light of heavens and the earth. So following Allah's path is like having the bright light guiding us in darkness. Next one is the qualities of true believers. Surah Al-Mu'minun, verse number 1 to 11, it mentions the qualities of true believers. They pray with focus, they speak the truth, and they avoid the bad things. So if we want to see are we good believers, we need to check upon are these three qualities existing in us or not. The reality of the hereafter in Surah Al-Furqan, verse number 12 to 16, it is mentioned, when hellfire sees them from a distant place, they will hear its fury and roaring. So hell is real, so we must do good to avoid it, right? Next one, the conclusions, what we can learn from here. The things we do learn from here, we should follow the 5 pillars to stay on the right path. Learn from the prophets and their patience, guard your modesty and actions. Always be honest, humble, and responsible. Remember that Jannah is a reward for the righteous. And the question of the day for the kids is, what is the lesson from this para that you will start following today? And let me know which one miracles of Prophet Isa alayhi salam were mentioned in this para. That's all for today. Inshallah, see you in the next class. I hope you understand the lesson really well. And if you do have any other question about any stuff, do let me know. And inshallah, we will cover up the para number 19 in the next class. Till then, have a nice day. Allah Hafiz.